Hello, everybody. Hello. Good evening. My name is Tyson, the host of the show. There we go. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I am the host of the show today. My name is Tyson, the host of the show. Sorry for that. A little bit of feedback right there. No worries. Good evening. I am the host of the show. Okay, there we go. A little bit of feedback there. Sorry about that. We're all very, very excited for you guys all to be here tonight. We got a really cool episode on breaking shame. There we go. So it's going to be super, super exciting, and I can't wait to get into it. So here is Doug.
Hey, Tyson.
Hey. Not sure.
You know, I'm watching your face as you're casually and comfortably moving through the technical challenges of audio. It's all good. You know what? This is episode 2. I'm excited to be here with you, my producer, my host of my show, and it's all good. You know what? It doesn't really matter, because one of the things we're going to talk about tonight is who gives a crap what anybody thinks. So don't worry about the audio or the feedback or anything like that. We're just gonna have a good night here tonight. So, Melissa, I want to thank all of you for coming on. It's kind of got a new setup here. I may be glancing up to my right because I'm in my home here, and I'm on camera with you, but right behind me is my big screen television, and so I can see this. I feel like I got my own friggin' studio here. I can see your comments coming in. There's Paulina and Brenda. Who else we got? Casey, Jennifer, Chris, Danny. Cool. This is so cool. I love technology. This is awesome. Hey, well, listen, say hello if you're watching. And if you're watching the replay, by all means, engage during the replay. And we love your comments. We love your questions. And anything that you comment on or put into the comment section, whether you're on YouTube or you're on Facebook, we're watching, and it helps us for the shows as we're going forward. So listen, real quick, if you're here for the first time, we kicked off last Thursday night. It's called the Turning Point Show, and what I wanted to do was I wanted to find a way where I can get access to a large audience of people in a show like this, where I could provide advice, guidance, tips, tools, content. I've hit a number of turning points in my life. I've had an interesting life. It's been a hell of a ride. Definitely a roller coaster for sure. I don't even like roller coasters, but it's been a roller coaster, and I've learned a lot along the way through my experiences. I remember I was talking to the London School Board here in London, Ontario, Canada, and when my story first hit the newspaper and television, the director of guidance for the whole school board, and I don't know how many number of schools they have in London. It's a pretty big city, 500,000 people. He asked me to come down and speak. And so I'd spoken in my business career and things like that in front of audience, so I was fairly comfortable. Anyway, I drove down to London, and they handed me a microphone, and I was in front of 2,000 high school students. Now, I wasn't nervous about speaking, but I was nervous about being in front of 2,000 high school students. Anyway, I just got up with the mic, and I just told my story, and very similar to the story that I had written for the newspaper and it was on television. And I got off the stage, and he said, "Man, oh man," he said, "that's like one of the best presentations we've seen in a long time. We have speakers here all the time." He said, "Doug," he said, you're a cognitive authority." And I don't even know what the hell that meant. I mean, I barely have a grade 9 education, so I don't know what that actually meant. But he said, "Well, you've lived this, like you've been through, everything." I often say the only thing I really haven't experienced is heroin in my needle in my arm or war, but I've been through pretty much everything else in my life, and so I've come across a lot of people. I've worked with hundreds of people, probably thousands of people since I started in business. And primarily although I was in the finance business and I was in sales and running businesses, really what I was doing was helping others. I was mentoring and coaching people how they could do better, in their business, how they could do better, in their income, which ultimately made their lives better. And I didn't realize it, but for all these years, God was grooming me for doing this. And we got this idea of the show a little while ago. Tyson came up with it, actually, to his credit. And we thought, let's do this. And so the point of the show really is 3 segments to it. One is my 2 cents, which we're going to come to in a second here. And then we're going to take some questions. And then I'm going to give you the next step, or what we call the first step. So let's get into this tonight, and I want to talk to you a little bit, give you my 2 cents. What I want to talk about tonight with you is I want to talk to you about how to stop dragging your story around and let go of guilt and shame. Now, when we were posting and advertising, we were talking about guilt and shame that a lot of people carry around from trauma and abuse, and that's my story. That's where I came from. I came from a very, very violent, abusive background. I grew up in a very violent, alcoholic home. Both my parents were violent alcoholics, and I mean violent, like they were kicking the crap out of each other. Like they were really, really hard on each other. And they suffered because of it. They suffered both physically and mentally. My brother and I were often in the middle of these wars, I call them. There's beer stains and blood stains on the wall. I mean, it was a really dark place for a little boy to grow up in. And then, my parents split up, and I ended up looking for relationships where I would feel good about myself. And I ended up in this ring of pedophiles. And so for 2 years, I'm sexually abused at the hands of a ring of pedophiles. I was kidnapped at 15, and then I turned to drugs and alcohol. And for that sort of from 13 on, I carried around a lot of feelings, a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, a lot of responsibility, a lot of physical symptoms. I remember walking home from, downtown Kitchener, where I grew up. We'd stay out all night playing pool, me and my buddy. And I had these gastric ulcers. I'd literally have to lay on the ground for sometimes a half an hour, curled up in a ball like a baby, just trying to manage the pain before I could get up and walk again. And so it was a very dark life, And so for most of my life, I just kind of carried this story around and carried this guilt and shame around. I think I inherited the shame and guilt. And what I want to talk to you about is that I think that if you've been through any type of trauma, if you've been through any type of abuse, if you've been through whether you've experienced trauma that's been inflicted on you, or you've seen trauma. Oftentimes, people that are in first responders and different things like that often witness different things. I remember interviewing the police officer, the detective that showed up at my door when I was 15, when I got home after being kidnapped. And I met him years later. Before my story came out in the newspaper, I was interviewing police officers and teachers and family and friends and acquaintances, people that were in the neighborhood, et cetera. And I met with this guy. And I remember when I was little, when I was 15, he was like this, I called him a giant in uniform, this long raincoat, looked like a typical police detective. And I met him for coffee at Tim Hortons in Kitchener. And he's still a big man. He's like 6'4", 6'5", taller than me. And we sat down, and he was really struggling. He was struggling with shame and guilt about what he had seen as he was investigating and meeting the children, interviewing people like me, boys like me, interviewing parents, and ultimately arresting and convicting and going to court with the pedophiles. And so, there's so many people carrying around this junk, this mental junk. And that's what I was doing for such a long time. I remember when I first realized that I'd been through this abuse, it came out through therapy and counseling. I'd blocked it all out. And I remember starting to read some books. And one of the first books I got was called Garden of Shame. And it was a story of Martin Cruz, who was a young man in Toronto, and he was playing hockey and hanging out at Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto. And his hockey coach had sexually abused him. And he went public, and he ended up actually taking his life, jumping off the Bloor Street Viaduct Bridge and killing himself, committing suicide. And I could feel the shame and the guilt and everything that I was carrying around in him. Then I got another book called A Boy Called Dave. Lost Boy. My apologies, Lost Boy. And then Man Called Dave. There was 3 in the series. Dave Pelzer was his name. And at the time when his story came out, he was considered, the severest case of child abuse in California history. Now, I don't know how you measure that, but anyway, his story was quite severe. And so I'm watching that, and then some memories are coming back for me. And again, I'm feeling, the guilt and shame that he's carrying around. And then somebody handed me, I printed this off here. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'll share it with you if you want it. Maybe you've heard about it. But then somebody shared me this poem. It's called My Name is Toxic Shame. And the author here says, abuse creates toxic shame. The feeling of being flawed and diminished and never measuring up. Toxic shame feels much worse than guilt. With guilt, you've done something wrong, but you can repair that. You can do something about it. With toxic shame, there's something wrong with you, and there's nothing you can do about it. You're inadequate and you're defective. Toxic shame is the core of the wounded child. This meditation sums up the ways that the wonderful child got wounded. The loss of your I amness is spiritual bankruptcy. The wonder child is abandoned and all alone. And maybe you can relate to that. I mean, if you can relate to that, type that in the chat. I'll get this to you. It's called My Name is Toxic Shame. Let me just read a couple paragraphs. It's about 2 pages long here. It opens with, I was there at your conception in the epinephrine of your mother's shame. You felt me in the fluid of your mother's womb. I came upon you before you could speak, before you understood, before you had any way of knowing. I came upon you when you were learning to walk, when you were unprotected and exposed, when you were vulnerable and needy, before you had any boundaries. My name is Toxic Shame. I came upon you when you were magical, before you could know I was there. I severed your soul. I pierced you to the core. I brought you feelings of being flawed and defective. I brought you feelings of distrust, ugliness, stupidity, doubt, worthlessness, inferiority, and unworthiness. I made you feel different. I told you there was something wrong with you. I soiled your godlikeness. My name is Toxic Shame. And it goes on and here. And I remember reading this for the first time and how strongly it hit me. I was weeping as I was reading this. I mean, I felt my own toxic shame. But then it's interesting. I made a decision that I wasn't going to live this way anymore. I just finally got fed up. And I just I made a decision that I was going to figure out how I was going to break free from this shame. And I remember the guilt that I carried around. I remember when I was a little boy trying to break up my parents' fights. My brother and I'd be yelling and screaming, "Stop, mommy, stop, daddy." And I'm in the middle of this fight, this physical fight going on. And I remember at a very young age carrying these feelings of guilt and responsibility. And it carried through to most of my adult life. And I guess it was 2001 when my story came out. So at the time I was 39 years old. I went public, as I mentioned. It was on television, it was in the news. And I started speaking, as I mentioned, to the high schools. And I started speaking to different high schools and companies and police officers and social workers, et cetera, et cetera. And people would line up after the talk. And what I found was that the more that I told my story, the more people were able to tell their story. And I have these lineups at high schools of these kids, and they were like young me. Their head was hung down. They could barely make eye contact. Their palms were sweaty, and their voice was low. And they say, "Doug, can I talk to you?" And I'd take them aside from the line, and they would open up and they would share things. I mean, and I could see, myself in those young teenagers. And everybody kept asking me, like, how'd you do it? Like, how did you go from that story that you just told to where you are now? Now, granted, I was still creating turning points. I mean, there was all kinds of turning points coming down the road since 2001 that I had no idea were coming. And that's kind of the way things work. You know, you just focus on what you want to do, the way you want to live your life, who you want to become, what your purpose is, what your passion is, and God kind of lays a path for you to follow if you're paying attention. I made a lot of mistakes. And I just decided, talking to these young people, that I wanted to come up with an answer that would actually change things, you know? And so I spent years, a lot of work, a lot of studying, a lot of talking, a lot of coaching, a lot of investing in myself to really figure out how I could translate what I'd done for others in a very short period of time. I was talking to, I don't know if she's on tonight. Tyson, if you see New Ray on there tonight, you let me know. New Ray, if you're on, just say I'm here. Anyway, I think I mentioned her last week on the show, but here was a lady that I had talked to, and she shared her story with me. And she had been struggling a long, long time. And we got into a conversation, and she told me her perspective, her viewpoint, her biases on what had happened to her. And I just listened. And what I try to do is, when I'm listening to you and talking, and hopefully we can talk tonight or maybe on a future show, when I'm talking to you, I'm listening very, very closely, because what I'm looking for is your authentic self to come out, the real you to come out. And there's glimpses of it. It shows up in your eyes. It shows up in your energy, your body language might reveal something to me. But your story and your self-image and your hurt, your pain, your anger, your resentment, your guilt, your shame, it's all yapping away. And it's got a story that it tells. And so she's telling me her story. And so I listened, and then I said, let me give you a different perception. And so I fed back a different version of the story that I was seeing. And so, what if you looked at it this way? And what if you considered this? And let me explain to you why you're feeling the way that you're feeling. Let me explain to you why you have the perception that you have. And so we're talking, and well, all of a sudden she lights up, like, man, oh man, she couldn't sit down. She, like, her energy changed, her eyes lit up. She goes, oh my God, like, I've been through therapy, hypnosis, she rifles off all these things she's done. And she goes, this is unbelievable. This is amazing. Like, everything just changed me right now. And I said to her, I look at my watch. I said, do you know how long we've been talking? She goes, no. And I said, well, we talked for just, kind of hello, get to know you for the first 5 minutes. And then we talked for like another 15 max. I said, this happened in 15 minutes. Anyway, that was 3 weeks ago. I talked to her last night. I wanted to just check in with her and see how she's doing. And she said, it's unbelievable, Doug. Now her old story comes up, her old paradigm comes up, her old, perceptions keep coming up, but I gave her some tips on how to stay in control of her thinking and not let that story drag her down. So I guess just my 2 cents tonight is that we've got, these stories, and we like to drag them around. I love dragging them around. It was a great excuse. I was able to excuse lots of mistakes, lots of my behavior. And I found out, you know what? I hurt a lot of people, including myself. I thought, it's not my fault that I became who I became because my story was so severe, but it is my responsibility to take charge of my life and take control of the decisions and the things that I'm doing. And that's what I decided to do. And that's what you got to decide to do. And so your turning point could be tonight. You could change your mind. I look at my abuse not as a curse, but as a gift. I just changed my perception on it.
Yeah. I love that, Doug. Doug, that was amazing. Some of the biggest things that you can do is take every responsibility of your life, but it's like super hard. Like, I remember when I tried to do it as well. It's super, super hard, but it's super rewarding. I love it. So we got some super cool questions in here. If you want to move on to that, we can move on to the next segment. Super fun.
Yeah, let's work. So our next segment is called Real Advice That Works.
Yeah.
And what we're going to do is we're going to drop a link for you. If you want to get on the show or you want to have a question for a future show, you can click on that link and it'll take you to my website and you can submit your question, or maybe you want to be a guest on the show. Obviously, you can type your questions, your comments here on Facebook and YouTube, and Tyson's monitoring all that with Aaron. Let's bring Aaron on real quick. Aaron just joined the show. Tyson's so good, he got himself an intern. And so Aaron is a client. I met her. She was working for a company that I took through a coaching program. And Aaron and I just hit it off, and we'll tell you our story another time. But anyway, she's behind the scenes, and she's going to be helping out as well. So the thing we're going to do later, thanks, Aaron. The thing we're going to do later is we'll drop a link, and you can get on the show tonight live if we've got some time. We'll do that, and you'll get into a green room, and Aaron will chat with you and ask you, what your question is or why you want to get on the show, and we'll see if we can get a couple people live on the show. I don't know if we got the audio fixed up. Some people are having a problem with their phone last time. We'll see if we got that, if we have that resolved. So Tyson, why don't you start with a couple of questions, and then we'll just take it from there.
Yeah, let's do this. All right. So to start it off, Janice from Australia. How do I stop getting stuck in anxiety when something triggers me? It's insidious and it takes me down so easily for so long. All right, what do you think?
Well, like this toxic shame, it is insidious, and it's a self-perpetuating cycle as well. I think one of the things to stop getting stuck in anxiety is, first off, you need to understand anxiety. Now, I had anxiety, suffered greatly, depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, all kinds of symptoms show up in my physical body, like really, really struggling. And I realized I didn't know anything about anxiety or depression or anything like that, And I've realized in the work I've been doing, it's been 2014, there'll be 7 years coming up in May 2021 when I started working with Bob Proctor, who was my mentor, and teaching, people to really understand, their mindset and their subconscious mind and their emotions and their self-image and all the junk that they're carrying around. As I'm talking to people, I'm realizing how many people are freaking stuck. Like, oh my God, because I tell my story to kind of, make you feel comfortable, and that gets you. So I tell the truth, and then you start revealing the truth. Some more than others. Maybe it leaks out. Sometimes just people blurt it out, which is great. And I realize that so many people are suffering from anxiety and depression, and they don't even understand it. Now, they only understand it to the context of what's out there in the media, or what's on television, or what's in commercials that are selling products to relieve you of your anxiety, depression, or your friends or your family that are suffering from it, or whatever. And I call us we're like sheeple. We're sheeple. We just follow the masses. One of our biggest problems is ignorance, lack of understanding. And so what I've discovered in these past 6 years, talking with hundreds and hundreds of people, hundreds of clients, that most people really don't understand the cause of anxiety and depression. So depression is anxiety and depression is a physical state. Okay. You think certain things. You got these beliefs, and you got these stories, and you have these thoughts. You just keep playing them over and over. It's like a record player, just over and over and over. And what people understand is that your thoughts actually create your emotions. Okay, it's your thoughts that create the emotions. And your emotions then dictate how this thing feels. Okay, so this body is an instrument of the mind. Okay, this body is made up of energy. Okay, and the energy of this physical thing is controlled by the thought and the emotion that's created by the thought. So what happens is the physical body, you start having these thoughts, and you start entertaining thoughts of fear and worry and doubt. And what that does is, at a subconscious level, it then converts to what we call dis-ease, okay? You become anxious from the thoughts and from the feelings. And then what you do is you suppress that anxiety. So one of the biggest problems you got, and that I had, is I was suppressing my story. I was suppressing my shame. I was suppressing my guilt. I was suppressing all the things that I had done to hurt people. I kept it secret. Secrets keep you sick. And so I started telling people. And I'm very, very open. Like, you're going to hear some stuff on this show that might scare you. It might offend you. It might, make you feel very uncomfortable. And I'm just going to share it very, very openly. And so by suppressing that, then your body moves into a state of depression. And that depression then turns into dis-ease. And so what I've discovered is actually most people can get rid of anxiety and depression very, very quickly. But the starting point, you're going to hear me talk about this all the time on every show. The starting point for you is decision. Okay? You have to make a decision, and then you have to consent and agree that, all right, my way's not working. So maybe you should try something else. So I can help you. If you want to learn how to change it really fast, that's one of the things I do when I mentor people, whether they're young people or their parents or people in business. One of the first things we get in doing is really changing what's going on inside for you, because what's going on inside is controlling what's going on outside. So
awesome, Doug. Damn. So that's what you would call a Doug Dane. You just got that would be a.
You just got Doug Dane, eh, Tyson?
Yeah, that's the catchphrase that we always say around the house. Is even when he's not around, we hear him in our heads, because he always has these really good advice, and you just like hear him in your head. You're like, oh, we just got Doug Dane in our head. Or maybe he comes to our house, and he just totally catch it, like change our perspective. I'm like, wow, we just got Doug Dane.
Now, Tyson, now the deal is I'm gonna come do the Doug Dane thing, but I want to get fed from now on.
Fed, yes.
All right, give me another question.
Yes, I actually want to take one from the chat.
Sure.
So, Alex from Facebook, he has a question really quickly about how do you handle a spouse that has a poverty mindset and doesn't support the PGI? Job security is a must for them, and job security is a must for me. She would be really happy with me having a secure job and steady paycheck. Yeah. I would rather do PGI full time though.
Well, so again, I'm going to kind of warn you. I say things that piss people off, but I'm very direct. I'm very honest. One of the shows we're going to run is called "How to End Your Marriage and Start Your Life." Now, I don't mean end your marriage, meaning leave your marriage, although you may do that. But too many people are standing by bargains in relationships that they inherited from their parents. So we all have rules, values, and beliefs that we live by and we operate by. And some people, like, you'll have rules, values, and beliefs. They don't make any sense. And they're not serving you. They're only causing you problems. You're not living the way you want to live. You're actually living with guilt and shame because you want to do this, but you're feeling guilty because, you're here, but you want to go there, And so I think the first thing you got to do is you got to make your mind up. You're going to be yourself. That's the first thing. You got to make your mind you're going to be yourself. The second thing I would do is I wouldn't worry about what your spouse says. Now you're in a relationship and marriage, and so listen. There's your relationship with you, Alex. There's your partner or spouse's relationship with her or him. Okay, and then there's your relationship, the two of you. Right? You're responsible for you, not her, and you're responsible for this. Okay, and so the second thing you got to do is you got to change the way that you look at her in every respect. Start looking at your partner, your spouse, in the way you want to see them. And if they say things or do things that are conflicting with where you want to go and what you want to do, you can listen and you can be understanding and you can empathize with them, But I think oftentimes we are too afraid to stand our ground and draw the lines and go, listen, this is my life. All right. This is what I want to do. This is my purpose. This is my passion. This is where I want to go in my life. And I would really like your support, but I don't need it. And so you got to make your mind up what you don't need. You know, they say that, you've heard people say opposites attract. I don't believe that. I don't believe opposites attract at all. I think people with emptiness attract. So I was attracted to people that had things that I didn't have, that were missing in me, that were empty in me, and I tried to fill myself up with other people in relationships. And guess what? It doesn't work. You know. So I think you got to sit down and you got to be really, really honest. And then you negotiate, and you like your marriage. This thing here, this is a partnership. Okay. And I would take a look at what are the rules, values, and beliefs around everything: money, children, the whole shebang. I'd even write it all out. You don't have to go to therapy or counseling or that crap, or a week-long seminar. Just get your friggin' pen out and think. And I would just take a really close look at what are the rules, values, and beliefs I have around a relationship. What are the rules, values, and beliefs I have around being a husband? What are the rules, values, and beliefs I have around being a father? What are the rules, values, and beliefs I have around what I think my wife should be? And I would have a very serious conversation. It might take you a few conversations, but I would be having these conversations, and you're going to have to face them. One of the biggest things that people have a hard time facing is conflict. I'll give you a simple example. Somebody will talk to me. They want to work with me, and they really want to work with me, but they go, I can't afford it, or I don't have the time. Whatever excuse or alibi their fear makes up. And then they won't get back to me. And I don't care if they work with me or not. It doesn't matter to me. But they won't get back to me because they're even afraid to say no. And so you got to start learning to deal with conflict. That'll build your confidence up. That'll build your strength up. And the other thing is, the more you start being yourself and not compromising yourself for anything or anyone, or the relationship. You may compromise in the relationship, but you don't compromise yourself. And you don't ask them to compromise themselves. But the more you do that, the stronger you become, the more confident you become, the less you're concerned about what they think. And guess what? Your marriage doesn't end, it starts. And you can create this brand new, beautiful relationship that you just love. It's amazing what can happen if you just stop and think about what you think about. And so, like I mentioned earlier, the lady that really struggled for a long time that I talked to, I just changed her perception. And so if you change your perception, everything on the outside changes. That's what I would start with.
Awesome. That was amazing. That was really, really good. Do you want to move on to the next question?
Sure, we got another question. Whatever you got, man. Freedom, bring them in.
Okay, cool. I see Jennifer had a question. Did you want to repost it in the chat? I saw that you had a question. And we'll use it right next after that, okay? After this question. So here's the next question. So this is from John from Toronto. And he was wondering, how did you gain confidence and stop worrying about what others are thinking? This is a good one. I know you're going to kill this one.
Well, again, the starting point of everything is decision. So I didn't like feeling so insecure. I really got fed up with it. I mean, I was up and down, and when I was down. Man, I mean, I could be down for days, weeks. I remember, like when I was younger, I wouldn't even go out. My buddies go, "Hey, we're going out here, we're going out there," and I go, "I'm just going to stay home." And man, it was severe being home alone, feeling the way I was feeling. And then when I was out, I was second guessing myself so much. Like I'd be talking to you, let's say, and we'd be having a conversation. And as soon as I'd say something to the conversation, in my mind, I'm replaying it and second guessing everything that I was saying. Like I literally thought I was going crazy. I turned to drugs and alcohol. And luckily for me, the more stoned I got, the more paranoid I got, to a point where I go, I'm not doing that anymore. And so I finally quit drugs. Now it took me, I started drugs at 15 and it was 23 when I finally said, okay, I'm done with that because that ain't working. So decision, and I think I just got to a point where I just didn't like the way that I felt. And really what it came down to is what I discovered, and you're going to hear me talk a lot about an amazing book called The Four Agreements. It's by Don Miguel Ruiz. If you haven't read it, if you're anything tonight relates to you, I'd read it. It's a little book. First time I read it, it took me a couple hours to read it. It doesn't take very long. And he talks about that we've made these agreements. Our parents programmed us, rules, values, beliefs, what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad, what I can't do, what I should do, who I am, who I'm not, et cetera, et cetera. And you just make these agreements. You just go along and go, okay, well, that's what they're telling me. That must be the deal. And so you agree. He said, if you replace your agreements with these four agreements, your entire life will change. And literally that book, literally saved my life, literally. And so the second agreement was don't take anything personally. What other people say and do is how they see you and how they see the world through their own agreements. He says we live in this matote, this fog. So he's a Mexican Toltec Nagual, spiritual leader, and we live in this fog. And so, you're perceiving me right now, whether you like me or you don't like me, or I'm pissing you off, or I'm getting you motivated, or whatever. You're seeing me through your agreements. And so I just inherited that agreement. I don't take anything personally. And then what I did, I just started affirming it, repeating it over and over, writing it, saying it out loud, saying it in my mind, affirming, catching myself when I was taking things personally, go, nope, I'm not taking anything personally. And I just kept doing that over and over and over. Now, it took me a long time, and I thought, am I ever going to get this? Am I ever going to get this straight? And then I started studying this information, really understanding your mindset and how it controls you in this mental program that we got running. And when I started studying that, I started to discover who and what I really am. So you're created in God's image. And Bob Proctor, who I mentioned mentors me, he said, we're spiritual beings living in a physical body, and we've been gifted with an intellect. And things that I had read said that I am a soul. I don't have a soul. I am a soul. And so when I figured that, I go, you know what? I'm going to start thinking like a spiritual being, not like a human being way down here. I'm going to get up here and look down on situations and go, what would a spiritual being do? What would a God-like being do? If I'm creating God's image, I can think in God's image. And I just started thinking different again, changing my perception. And I finally realized, why the hell would I care what anybody thinks? And I used to call Bob up, and because I was really struggling with this, and he said, why would you care what anybody thinks? And I don't know. I mean, I just did. But I finally made up my mind that that's it, I'm done. And I just started affirming it over and over and over and over and over again. And then the confidence started to come. And then I started acting. For me to start this show, I was taking it personally. And I was letting my ego and other crap get in my way of saying, well, you should wait, Doug, or you're not ready, or whatever. And I was holding off. Tyson's bugging me to do the show for almost 2 years now. And, I was concerned about what you were going to think. And then finally I got to a point very quickly when I figured out how to change it quickly. And that's what I wanted to do. Is when I figured out how to change things quickly, I want to show you how to do it really quickly. And I know how to do that. Yeah, I guess I just decided and started acting like that person. And then I got a reaction to the action, which gave me more confidence. And so confidence comes from either experience or confidence comes from action. And your self-image actually gets built through the law of cause and effect. You create a cause, you take an action, you get a reaction, and you get a reaction. So you act like the person you want to become, and you get a reaction to that action, and you become that person. And so you can work with the law and we'll talk more about working with the law. You can work with the law to become more confident and just really release yourself from what other people are thinking.
Nice. Awesome. Even in Think and Grow Rich, when I was reading, when you told me to go read it, when they were talking about the most successful people, they're talking about how they make decisions, and how they make decisions is lightning quick.
Yes.
And I thought that was the and that ever since I've learned that, I felt like my confidence has grown too.
Yeah.
So
yeah. He said that, successful people make decisions very quickly and change their mind rarely, if at all. And he interviewed 25,000 people over 25 years. He said failures, he interviewed a lot of failures. He said failures make decisions very slowly and change their mind very often. And so one thing you got to start doing is just start making decisions really quick. So many of you suffer from procrastination. You put things off. Well, the underlying issue for indecision is lack of confidence. And so maybe you're just not sure how to do something, or you're not really confident you can pull it off, or you want to start a business, or you want to create a career, or you want to leave that relationship that's not serving you. But you'd lack the confidence to make the move.
Mm-hmm.
And then that creates all kinds of doubt and overthinking and second guessing and procrastinating, and then you're screwed yourself. Like, I work a lot with obviously people that are abused, and women, for example. They'll stay in an abusive relationship relative to their self-worth and their self-confidence. And so what I do is I can't tell you how many people I got to leave their marriage, whether it was abusive or not. It was just bad. And people go, wow, that's not a good idea, Doug. Well, it's a hell of a great idea if both people are struggling and suffering and they're not living their lives. And that's what people do. They put off decision. Now, I want you to think tonight before you go to bed, what's one decision you've been putting off that if you made it and you acted upon it, it could really change the course of your life? It's a good question. All right, Tyson, we got time for a couple more, I guess, huh?
Yeah, to take this full circle, Daniel from Facebook, he has a question. Okay. So when you start falling down the rabbit hole of self-shaming and being insecure, what is the best way to snap yourself out of it? So when you do get into those ruts, how do you snap out?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I love that you said the rabbit hole. One of the chapters in my book that I'm writing is called The Rabbit Hole. So the rabbit hole is your past. That's the rabbit hole. Okay. What I discovered about, again, mindset. And when I say mindset, meaning how I've got this mental program. My mind is a machine. It's controlling this thing, which ultimately creates my outside world, my life. It's a machine. It operates a certain way. And I was studying a book. I mention it. You'll hear me mention it all the time. It's one of my favorite books. It's called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. And in the book, he's explaining how this machine works. And I remember it was Christmas time, December 27th. And I'm reading the chapter on self-image. And so the book is about your mind being a machine, and the program that runs your mind is the self-image. So you have an image of yourself, which is an accumulation of the rules, values, beliefs, experiences, all that stuff. So Daniel, what I read, and it was like, oh my God, like the lights went off. Like the lights came on, rather. Let there be light. He said, if you look backwards on your life and you replay those events, so you use your memory, your imagination, and you go back in time and you look at the things that you've done, your imagination takes you back there. You can feel it. The emotions come up, the guilt comes up, the hurt, all the emotions associated to the past events, whatever they are, come up. And because you look at it, you see yourself as that person. And then you stay as that person. That's why I was stuck. I kept looking backwards on my past. He says, your mind only works in the present moment if you're focused on the present moment. If you're looking backwards, it doesn't work. You've got this mind. It's an automatic goal-seeking, creative mechanism. It can achieve any goal. It can get around any obstacle, overcome any problem, and it's extremely creative when it's in a relaxed state. And so I'm reading this, go, oh my God, I've been using the machine wrong. So I made an affirmation and I go, that's it. I go, I'm not looking backwards. I'm only going forwards. I'm not looking backwards. I'm only going forward. And if I caught myself looking backwards, I go, nope. I'd snap my fingers. Nope, I'm not looking backwards. I'm only going forwards. Nope, I'm not looking backwards. I'm only going forwards. And my fingers got sore in the beginning because I was doing this a lot. And so you got to train yourself that you are not going to look backwards. The only reason you should go backwards with your memory is to recall information from the past that you can use to move forward towards the future that you want. Do not live in the past. Now you're trained to do that. Your friends, your family, the people that you hurt, your girlfriend, boyfriend, wife, whatever, they want to go back to the past because they're trained to do that. All we do is talk about the past. I mean, in fact, the past is gone, Daniel. Your question just got answered. It's over. It's done. I can't take back what I said. It's already out. You can't take back the question you asked. The past is in the past. Leave it. Let the dead bury the dead. Okay? The true art of forgiveness is forgetting. Okay? That's how you forgive yourself and forgive others, is you forget about it. And if you're not thinking about it, you're not going backwards, it becomes a distant memory. And so that's a decision you have to make. Now you might go, that's bullshit. That's not going to work. Well, it's not going to work if that's what you think. It does work. Just train your mind. I'm not going backwards. That's it. Period.
Snap. Awesome. Mic drop.
Boom.
One of my favorite quotes around this topic is you have no obligation to be the person you were 5 seconds ago. And it kind of makes it into that topic, right?
Yeah, no, I love that. I think the other thing you'd want to do, everybody listening, I always say, decide on the person you want to become, or have the courage to be yourself. We talked about this last week. There's a great essay by Thomas Troward called Yourself. And he said, surely it's a lot easier to be oneself than to strive and strain and struggle trying to be somebody that you're not. It's a lot easier to be yourself. So if you're straining and you're struggling and you're having a hard time, why don't you just make your mind up, you know what? I'm just going to be myself, and who gives a shit what anybody thinks about me? That'd be a good decision to make too. Tyson, let's take a quick break for a second, and then we're going to come back. We'll talk about the first step.
Awesome. Sounds good. All right. See you guys in a bit.
This is so cool. Tyson, I love this. I feel like I'm on a TV show. I get a little break, makeup came in, hair and makeup showed up. I got my green M&Ms over there. I got
a little espresso. Gotta get a good energy.
Listen, I'm gonna start baking some star demands. Erin, the new intern, she's gonna have to be doing a lot of work. I need an intern here at home. My daughter's home. She's upstairs in her room. Maybe I'll get her to be my intern. I doubt it.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Let's talk about the first step. So this part of the show is I want to give you some actionable steps that you can take to really get rid of the junk that you've been carrying around. And if we got time, we might have time for maybe a couple more questions, something like that. Again, if you want to get on the show, again, grab that link and you can go to the website and you can submit your question, or if you want to get on the show as a guest, you can go there. Tyson, we have time. Maybe we want to drop the link and somebody can hop on the show tonight. We get you in the green room, and we might have a minute or two to do that. We have to end at 9 o'clock sharp here. So, all right, Tyson, take that down for me.
Yeah, I'm going to be posting the chat right now for everyone. Okay, guys?
Okay. Do you want to take that first step off the screen?
Oh,
Tyson?
Yeah, there's no first. Do you have a first step on the screen?
Yeah, you know, take it off. It's still on there, I think. Take that image down.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. All right, good. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple steps that I think can cause a turning point. Last night I was talking again to this lady, and she said, "You know, Doug," she said, "you got me going in a different direction." And she goes, "You know, it was a short conversation, and it was just, you know," she kind of used her hand. She goes, "You made a turn like this, but it's going to be massive down the road, you know." And so I want you to imagine, you know, like if an airplane got knocked off course, even just by a little bit, like you're flying along and just a little change, doesn't feel like much right now, but down the road, oh my gosh, you'll be shocked at where you are. And so one thing is you're going to have to be patient. Okay. I was reading a devotional or something like that, and or maybe it was something on my phone I saw, but said, the idea behind patience, it's not about waiting, it's how you wait. And what that means is you're going to have to be patient, and how you wait is basically what's going on in your mind. What are you telling yourself? What are you thinking? We've all done it. We'll be standing in line at a store or something, and I don't know, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the only one that got crap run through my head, but I'm running things through my mind, you know, about, well, how long is this going to take? And this is going to be slow, blah, blah, blah. So just start waiting and become an observer. Start paying attention to what you think and what you say, both inside and outside, and what you do. So I want you, number one, is to become an observer, okay? And start paying attention and be patient. And make a couple little course corrections. And you may not believe it yet, but if you work with me, or if I talk to you, I'll explain to you how this all works. And like Nuri, I mentioned earlier, in 15 minutes, I just explained a new perspective, and she goes, "Oh my God, it makes so much sense." Now she just didn't know, but once she knew, she goes, "That makes a lot of sense." And 30 plus years of struggle are like, it's a totally different direction for her, and it's sticking. Like, it's not like she's gonna have some tough times. She'll be up and down like a roller coaster, but not as much. She won't stay stuck very long. We'll post it on my Facebook. It might already be there in the file section, but there's a great little essay. It'll only take you about 5 minutes to read. It's called "Yourself" by Thomas Troward. Now, you're gonna probably have to read it a few times. I read it every day, probably for 2 years. Bob gave me a copy of his from his book, and I read it. I would just make the decision that you're going to be yourself. Then make up a decision. So what I do is I make up decisions. I make decisions all the time. I make up rules that I form my own credo. I make up my own rules, and I go, this is the rule that I'm going to follow. And so one of the rules, like Daniel, make up your mind. You are not going to look backwards. You're not going to live in the past. You're not going to talk about the past. You're not going to think about the past. You're not going to let anybody else take you back to the past. Now, they're going to try, and you're going to try, but you just keep telling them, no, I'm not going back there. And they go, well, why don't you? Like therapists, God bless them. They do good work. They got big hearts, but they just want to keep taking you to the past. And then you go away, you talk for a couple of weeks, you feel good, then you crash and you go back. Like, stop looking backwards, okay? That's essential, right? And the last thing I want you to start thinking about is that you need to change your mind. Like earlier, when somebody was asking about their relationship, get your pen out, and I want you to take a look at some of the things that you believe. Like, just look at your life look at any situation that you're in right now. Take any situation that's not working for you. And I want you to write down your perception of the situation. Like just write out how you see it and write out what you believe, and you'll be shocked at what comes out of you. You go, oh my God, I can't believe I believe that. Like I did that. I go, this is bullshit. And once you look at it objectively, you go, that's it. I'm out of here. And literally just tear it up or burn it, shred it, whatever, get rid of it. And writing really causes thinking. Now some of you like to journal. I'm not a big fan of journaling because generally what we're journaling about, at least I was, a lot of people I've talked about journaling, is they're journaling about the past. There's a great little strategy called the pruning shears of revision. At the end of your day, sit down and look at your day, and in your imagination, go back to the beginning of the day when you got up, and just replay the whole day in your imagination. And all the areas that you don't like, make up a new story in your imagination. Your mind doesn't know the difference. You can trick your mind to believe whatever you want. And so maybe you stubbed your toe or somebody got angry with you or you raised your voice. Just play it back like you had this beautiful conversation. You gave your kid a hug and life was great. And then go to bed, right? Just make your mind up that you're not going to look backwards and live in the past. Make up these rules. Get rid of the beliefs that don't serve you. And if you get your pen out and write it out, you'll see it on paper, and then you can just get rid of it. It's like the writing, okay, and the evaluation of your perception, that's what changes it. And when your perception changes, your course changes very quickly. The beginning of the turning point is change your perception, go look that way, make a decision, that's where I'm going, and don't ever friggin' turn back. And that's it. We got about 100, what do you got, about 2 minutes, Tyson?
We have 2 minutes exactly.
All right.
Do you want to take one more question?
Why not?
Yeah? All
Sure.
right. Awesome. Sounds good. Okay, here is the last question. Dex from California. And it's a relationship question. I'm in a relationship that isn't really good for me, but I don't know what I'm going to do, what to do, and I'm not too sure I want to end it. How do you know what you should do?
You know what you should do, Dex? What you should do is you should start trusting your intuition. What you should do is start following the feeling. All right. What happens, here's how it works. Okay, so we operate like animals, okay? We've been gifted with an intuition. Animals have instinct, okay? They just operate in nature effortlessly. Well, we have intuition. It's much the same thing. And your intuition picks up things through feeling, through vibration. And so you get a feeling for something. And so you get the feeling, this isn't working for me. I really got to make a change. I got to have that conversation. I got to make a decision, and I got to move on. Or we got to do this, that, or the other thing to make this really work. And so you get that feeling, and then right away, what happens is your rules, your values, your beliefs, your program, what we call your paradigm, okay, your perception, has all these biases, and it hijacks your intellect. It hijacks your reasoning mind, and you start thinking about it. And you don't make a decision from the feeling, and you think about it, and you think about it, and you think about it. And you know what the thought does? The thinking, the overthinking, creates all kinds of doubt. You analyze it, you overthink it, you go get people's advice, you get people's opinions, and you think about it, and you think about it, and you think about it, and you're stuck again. So you know what to do, Dex. Just follow the feeling, and then have the courage to act on the feeling, face the conflict. The best thing you can ever do in your life is face conflict. Face the conflict, stand up, take responsibility, tell the truth of what you're really thinking and feeling, and then just trust and have faith that God and the universe will take care of everything, because that's the way that it works. And if you do that, you start practicing that, you'll start to see your life will unfold before you in magical ways you never could imagine. And what you're doing is you're probably releasing the other person and letting them off the hook. And that's not a bad thing either. All right, Tyson, I think we're done.
Yeah, right on the dot. Wow, you killed that question in 2 minutes.
Well, listen, we're going to close real fast here. I want to thank you for coming on. If you enjoyed this, share the recording on my Facebook or YouTube with anybody you think could benefit from this. We're back here every Thursday. I'm going to be here Christmas Eve, next Thursday, and New Year's Eve, because there's a lot of people out there that are alone, and I'm quite content being alone. I'm going to be alone at Christmas. My Eve's going to be with her mom, and I'm going to be here by myself, but I'm going to be quite happy being here by myself, and I'll be here with you. And send in your questions. If you want to work with me, you can go to my website, dougdane.com, and you can get information on working with me and having me mentor you, and I'd be pleased to talk to you about that. And Tyson, I want to thank you again. Aaron behind the scenes, first night here, thank you so much for being here. And thanks to all of you, and we're going to let you go. Have a great night. Thank you.